Your mommy calling you? All right. Let's see what we got. I ain't been here in a minute. Dang. It's been a minute. Let's see. me see if something's connected or not. Let me see. How about now? Mm, can y'all hear now? It's scratchy. Just pick, let's get this.
Okay. All right. So I will just do it like this. All right. Can y'all hear me now? Like from out there? Can y'all hear me now? All right. Cool. All right. So I'm gonna do something with that later on. All right. So yeah. All right. So yeah. Pretty much what happened was I was starting to talk about the. What part did you actually miss? I'm just rock out with what I got because I got a voice. So yeah. So what I was saying was we had revival all week, Monday to Friday. Had to be at church by like 6:30. So I was literally get home from work from like all of it. Okay. So yeah, I was saying had revival. So I work from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I will get home, take like a couple 2 or 3 hours to rest, whatever, and then be back out the crib to go to church. So the speakers were Pastor Waller from Enon, Bishop Marvin Winans, somebody named Reverend Marcus Crosby, I think Pastor Darius Brown, he's from this area, Lance Watson, and there's somebody else that I cannot remember. I can't remember. So yeah, that was cool. Like I said, I got nervous because they had me to read the occasion on Friday night, and I knew in advance. So I was trying to like settle myself to like really like clear my mind to be able to do it because it's that church is big and that church was packed basically all week. So yeah, that was nerve wracking, but hey, I kind of need to get used to talking in front of people because I'm gonna need to do that, or I'm gonna need that tool or that skill later on. I'm sure. Um, had Saturday off pretty much. Um, so yeah, didn't do anything Saturday. Sunday we had church like usual. Had Lincoln Choir come in, so got to hear them sing and all that good stuff. Now this is when we get to the gala. Had to dress up, so I had to go home, change real quick, and then head back out. Yo, the gala was cool. But I ain't gonna lie, I was getting mad restless. Like we had like a whole program, and I got there at like 3:30. We did sound check, but the first artist, which was Kiera Sheard, she didn't get up. I mean, it's not her fault, but we didn't get up there to help her out until like 8:10, like 8:15. So between 3:30 and 8 something, we was not like doing anything. I'm at my table, like yawning my life away. I yawned like 20 times, y'all. Like I was so restless and sleepy. Like at one point, I was like, I'm about to set an alarm, go in my car, and take a nap. And let my phone just wake me up when it's time for me to go in there. Cause ain't no way I can go up there and be sleepy. No sir. But we had some food before that. Yeah. Yeah, it was a long day. And then I'll say it like this too, because even before that day, regarding the whole gala and us playing for the artist, whatever, a lot stuff like this, a lot of changes happen like towards the end. Like when stuff is about to like finally come together, you getting mad details, you getting new information, you getting stuff you be like, how come nobody told me this? You know what I mean? It comes with it, so I wasn't really too pressed on it. But like we were rehearsing, we had one rehearsal as a band. And of course, like we don't know what's going to happen, but we pretty much because we assumed that we were going to be playing for the artist, like with just the band that's there, like as a house band. You know what I mean? So we're rehearsing like the music that we got, like we're rehearsing like the original version. We had to do Balm and Gilead for Karen, God is here, we acknowledge you, and this new joint she got, it's a churchy joint called Send It Down. Cool, cool. For Kiera, I can't remember the songs because honestly, we weren't supposed to necessarily play for her, but I'll get to that later. That's one of the new information leading up to it. Cool. For we're supposed to have Twinkie. Now, Twinkie got sick and could, bro, send it down. That joint was fun to learn. I like breaking down songs. Like I like learning songs to where like I gotta like start and stop the song and like replay like 30 seconds of it to make sure I got it down. Like I like stuff like that. Like I don't mind taking time to like break down like parts. I like that. Like and I'm not really a chop guy anyway, so I like playing my part. Like I enjoy that. You know what I mean? So we're practicing, we're rehearsing. Now mind you, for the most part, we didn't think we had to play for Kiera. We were told she was gonna just have stems or whatever. And Twinkie. Twinkie don't really do the whole like playing with tracks and bringing tracks and all that stuff. Understandable. So we're thinking like, okay, we just going, whatever she need, we gonna support her. You know, what I mean, we gonna make sure she good. So my only worry with playing with Twinkie though is like I'm younger, so I don't be knowing none of them old Kojic songs or none of them old joints that she may sing or may know. So I was like, all right, that's the only thing I'm really worried about. Cool. So we do the first rehearsal, and we're doing like Karen stuff. We like really locking that stuff in, doing the original stuff for Bomb and Gilead. We did the original song, rehearsed that. Did send it down. Of course, that was like the yeah, that was the like hardest song necessarily because like it wasn't something that like wasn't too like it wasn't familiar as like Bomb and Gilead. So we didn't even do God is here because like that's pretty much worship like in a church like vibe. So we already kind of knew she was gonna flow with that song. So we're like, cool, we knock everything out. The revival's going by day after day. I think like maybe Thursday, starting on Thursday or Friday, bro, we get new information. And like I said, none of this is a problem because like of course like pretty much stuff like this happens. There's always new information. There's always like some kind of wrench being put in the plan or something that's going to change. But we get told that, you know what I mean, They're gonna bring, an MD. Cool. All right, cool. And then we get sent these stems with like background vocals, no lead, but background vocals. The band is in there in the stems, and like they're kind of different arrangements, slightly different arrangements than what the originals were. So it's like, okay, cool. Like we'll just have to listen to it and just like figure it out as much as we can, just make sure we locked in that joint. So we get that, you know what I mean? It honestly got kind of easier because like Bomb and Gilead, we only got sent like 1 minute of the song. You know what I mean? So she was probably only gonna do about 2 minutes of the song. So that's not really something we had to even really worry about. Just make sure we got the hits down, make sure we was locked in. Cool. As it gets closer to it, pretty much leading up to the day, we hear, oh, so just got word, we're gonna the band is just gonna tag on the end, bro. Like, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it was just like, bro, we just find out about this now. Like, we didn't ultra prepared, which is not a bad thing at all. Because I'd rather be over prepared than under prepared. You know what I mean? But you know, just it was all good. It was just a lot of moving parts going into it. Even when we did the sound check, we didn't necessarily get the sound check with the MD because I think their planes and stuff didn't really arrive until like after 4:30. Karen was there first. Lady Karen was there first. So, you know what I mean? She was waiting for a while probably too. It was cool though. But when it was time to like lock in, like it was dope. Like we only did it's one of them things where like in sports, right? When you practicing, normally you're practicing way more stuff than you're actually gonna do when it's like game time. Like I used to run track in high school in my 10th grade year. I was trash. But anyway, like we would like naturally practice way more than we were actually gonna do like doing a track meet. Like we'll be running all day doing practice, but some of us only have like 2 or 3 races. So it was kind of like that. Like we practiced a bunch of stuff, but we ended up just kind of listening to what the artists were singing, and it just ended up like kind of again like joining in during the vamp, and it would like kind of fade out the track, and we'll just come along and play. Now I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous, bro. I was nervous. I'm gonna tell you how. So Kiera's up, and I think it was she started singing "Indescribable." I know that song. That's probably like my second favorite album of hers. Um, she's playing it. Actually, no, that wasn't the first. That wasn't the song. No, she did "Hang On," right? So she's doing "Hang On." The MD's he's starting to fade the track out. He's saying "We live, we live." I'm nervous, right? When he said live, I'm thinking like, okay, we about to go live without anything extra, just a track, like just a loop, just a clip. I stood there for like 2 seconds, waiting to hear like some kind of like clap or shakers or something. He was like, "No, ain't no track, just go." I was like, "Oh shoot, okay, okay, all right, cool." That worked out, but I definitely had a brain freeze, like just for about a split second, because I'm like, oh he mean live, like no track live. Like, okay, cool, cool. Because I mean, no track ain't the problem, but I think I was just kind of programming myself to like expect like because it's like a professional thing. Like these are professional artists. You know what I mean? You want stuff to be done right and on point. So like in my mind, I'm like, okay, so if nothing else, I'm pretty sure we're gonna use tracks like for the whole song. Like I kind of, or even through the parts that we had to play, like I'm thinking like, okay, once he turns the stem down, I'm waiting to hear like the click track or like the loop. Cool, that didn't happen though. So that was one. That was just me being nervous. And then when she did do indescribable, when she did indescribable, the the MD was like, "All right, yo, give me something with the snare." So again, I'm nervous, like I'm hearing them, but like my nerves are kind of like getting like in the way. I started doing that. I started doing what he said, but I was doing it on the hi hats, bro. Once I snapped out of it, I was like, "Oh, okay, 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 got you." Like I kind of had to like. This is kind of how I feel feel with it anyway. Like at some point, I was just like, you know what, we here now. Just have fun. Like don't overthink it. Don't try to like, don't think so deep into it that like I sound like I'm nervous or I sound like I'm an amateur that don't know what's going on. I don't want to come off like that. So other than that, it was real smooth. Um, Kiara set was cool. I was glad to get through that because again, I didn't know we were going to be playing any of her songs. So at the end of the day, I was like, as long as we get through Kiara stuff, we should be straight. We should be straight. So we get the Karen set. Hers went a little bit more smoother. You know what I mean? She was kind of churchy with it. I think the first song she sang was "We Acknowledge You." I know that song. I love that song. So that song really wasn't nothing. Like I really wasn't really concerned about any of her songs. Um, it was cool. We tagged, of course, the vamp, and of course the vamp. Like they added what they sent to us. Like there was an added part to it. No problem playing it. The issue came, y'all. The issue came when we're playing the vamp of the song, and I'm playing. I'm because the song is like four on the floor for like pretty much the whole song. Um, unless you want to, as a drummer, unless you want to add color to, to whatever you're doing. But for the most part, it's four on the floor. And while I'm four on the flooring, my foot, like my kick foot feels a little weird. It feels a little weird. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm looking down, and the pedal, even with Velcro on, it was a Gibraltar uh, foot pedal. As I'm kicking the foot pedal, the pedal again with Velcro on it is sliding away from the bass drum. Now I was still fine. You can still hear the kick, but I can tell like, oh my gosh, like this about to be crazy. So after a while, I don't hear no kick, y'all. I was distraught. Like normally, I'll be upset at that moment, but at that moment, I've matured in that, and I just kind of didn't let it get to me. I just let the tech know, hey, the foot pedal is off the off it's off the kick or it's off the bass drum. So aside of that, it honestly went well. We didn't even have to play all the Karen songs. We played like two of them because after that, she churched it. We had a little praise break. Clap your hands. The funny thing is, I called it. I was like, if anything, because me and my boy Kai, he played aux. Um, we actually was talking about it, and he was like, you know what? I hope they bump. And I'm just like, I was in my mind like they probably won't, but then I'm like, if they do, I wouldn't be surprised if Karen like comes out with that. Clap your hands and praise. Like I'm not surprised if she would do that. She ended up doing that, and that was pretty much her last number. So she ended up doing three. They all end up doing three. Um, it was cool. And then of course found out again, Twinkie couldn't make it. She wasn't feeling well. So they sent Dorinda. Miss Dorinda Clark Cole. Cool. Now, we didn't know none of her songs. Now, the only song that we knew was one I called too. I knew she was gonna do I'm Still Here. That's like her hit. So we knew she was gonna do that. We killed that. The other songs, I was like, bro, I'm gonna play these songs straight pocket like it's nothing because I don't know these songs. And they were like some like her newer songs. You know what I mean? Because she brought up to the crowd like about I guess her latest album, and I'm just like, bro, I don't know none of the songs on that joint. I've never heard it, unfortunately. But again, we got through it. I think that food gave me energy. I had like I think some roast beef and some salmon. So that gave me the energy I needed. I had some water and I had some like real like I ain't gonna lie to you, the tea was nasty. I had to put about like three things of sugar in the tea so it can be good. You know, Kai was offering me stuff like coffee, and I'm like, nah, I don't drink coffee. And then secondly, bro, I don't want my stomach to turn on me, and yeah, and I'll be up there uncomfortable because I'm fighting for my life. I'm already fighting for my life because I'm sleepy, but I ain't trying to be fighting for my life because my stomach is on fire. And I ain't talking about Holy Ghost fire either. I'm talking about like, I need a break. You know what I mean? So that was cool. I stayed active for a little bit, chatted up with some of the people. You know, some of my family was there because they go to the church, so I've seen a lot of them. You know what I mean? Helped to walk out Lady Karen, from the room that we were at, having the event. It was cool. I ain't gonna lie to you, you know, I ain't gonna lie. We were walking with them, and the whole time in my mind, I'm like, say something. Like, you should say something. Like, say something. Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm trying to work on like talking more, like being able to like start a conversation and like being able to have a conversation. And a part of me was kind of like, I want to say something, but I didn't want to come off as like, hear me out. I didn't want to come off as like some like obsessed fan. Like if I was going to say something to her, I didn't want to make it sound like I was like some groupie that, oh my gosh, I love you so. Like I didn't want to do that. Even though I do appreciate Lady Karen's music, out of all the Clark sisters that got solo albums, I'm probably more hip to hers than anything. Like I told her, I was like, Lady Karen, you didn't sing not one song from that Second Chance album, but I enjoyed you anyway. She started laughing. You know what I mean? In my mind, I was like, oh, I'm funny. But yeah, like I had to tell her that because Second Chance is really like my album. Like even when I started getting into like different musicians, like for different instruments, there's a song on there called Sacrifice, and she's singing along to that to the organ. It's just her and organ, but the organist is Ivan Powell. If you haven't heard it, you into that kind of music, you into it, like listen to that joint. It's fire. Like it's pretty much like she's singing with it, and it's the melody of the Brady Bunch. If you can believe that, like the melody is like to the Brady Bunch, but she's singing about like Jesus' sacrifice, and she starts off singing, and then Kiera singing. Yes, mom. Yes, like it's a good album. That's an album. I don't know what it is about albums that artists put out, and this is not even just in gospel. This is just like with any genre, where like when artists be going through stuff, that's when they best music be hitting. It be like, bro, you must have went through something to make this. You know what I mean? Just like with Chris Brown. I know it ain't gospel, but when he put out that graffiti album, that was around the same time of the whole like Rihanna thing. And he put out graffiti. To this day, that remains my favorite album by Chris Brown. That and then exclusive. But that graffiti, crazy. It's like they be going through stuff, and then that's when like it's like something gets pushed out of them. The music be crazy. It be dope. But yeah, at the end of that, I ain't get out of there almost close to 11. We was there for a minute. We were supposed to end. The night was actually supposed to end with like a line dance, but I think we went over time. So like I think the people in the building were like, yeah, y'all gotta go. Y'all gotta go. Y'all gotta go. But shout out to first of all the band. It was me on drums, um Dante Johnson on Oregon. He was gonna be our MD if they didn't have the didn't have their MD come in, which his name was Jay Brooks, Justin Brooks, Jay Brooks. So Justin Brooks on mains, Kai on aux, Scott Rector. Bro, I was so happy to see Scott. I haven't heard Scott play. I haven't seen Scott in such a long time. Like everybody that knows Scott was dumb hyped to see him because it's been so long. So Scott was on bass and um um Flo, we call him Flo, Wendell Floyd. I'm so used to calling him Flo, but you call him Flo, but that's short for Floyd. So Wendell Floyd was on lead guitar. We was locked in. We was cool. We was cool, bro. I don't know what it is, but sound check. It was like sound check was cool, but once I think everything started, it was like, oh my god, you couldn't hear nothing. I couldn't hear the singers. I couldn't really hear the track. I couldn't really. I definitely couldn't hear the lead. Like I was hoping I wasn't off because like I knew somebody was singing, but I didn't know what was going on. I just was like, Lord, guide me through this joint, please. Um, but yeah, that was cool. That was cool. It taught me a lot, honestly. Um, which leads to what I actually wanted to talk about. Um, I know like in the weeks past, I talked about like investments as far as like self investments, like inside stuff like self esteem, um, like just self confidence, comparison stuff like that. But I really thought about like tangible investments. I thought about that like last week, like just tangible investments. When it comes to like money, when it comes to saving money, when it comes to like having what you need, you know what I mean? So that way, like you're ready for whatever situation you got to deal with. Just simple stuff like that. I feel like simple stuff that sometimes we let that go over our heads, and then we be like, "How you don't got that?" Some people they just don't. People don't think about investments in that way to where like even the most simplest thing like is necessary. So, especially as a musician, I'm gonna start there. Even as a musician, like when I decided to start, like I want to start recording videos, like I knew, especially like in the social media age where like you kind of see like how musicians had their mix set up and stuff like that, and I would see musicians, you know, it was like a CD. I'm like, yo, I wanted something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's little things, you know, iRig, you know, stuff. And I knew if I wanted to have that kind of video or put out videos like that, I knew I had to invest in it. You know what I mean? If that's what you really want, that's what you do. But again, there's little stuff like that, like saving money, because I don't like when it's always looking like musicians be broke. Like I don't be liking that. Um, I feel like a lot of times, and not even if you are just a church musician, that's all you get your money from. I feel like you have to have like discipline to do that. Like even like when I invested in certain things, like hmm, when I got my snare drums, I think I got like three. I had three snare drums, right? Now, no, I'll say it like this. Yeah. So when I got my snare drums, I didn't just go like my snare drum was like $500, right? I'm not gonna go and do gigs, make 500 from a gig or two, and then just be like, okay, I'm gonna get the snare I want now because I got enough money for it. Nah, like investing sometimes it's not it's something that you do over time, like little things like saving, you know Sometimes you not gonna need to, cash that check that you got from a gig. Sometimes you need to put some of that aside. You might need to set aside the whole check. You might have to set aside part of it. You know what I mean? And I think that that's something that's not really, people talk about it like you broke, you musician, you always, you don't never have like, but again, you'll know what you need to invest in depending on the situation you have. Like I've learned to try my best to have everything I need, even if it's just for something like a small service, a church service. Because I've literally been in services where I've gotten there and there's no hi hat clutch, or there's no pedal. You know what I mean? And it's small stuff like that that matters. And it's not expensive. Like stuff like that's not expensive. You can actually that's one of the things where you can actually afford to buy those things like two, maybe three times over. You know what I mean? Like all the things that I have now, like I got it over time because the situations that I ran into require me to need certain things. Like even with tracks, like I had an interest for playing with tracks, and what do I do? I save my money, mom. Um, Again, I think saving is a big part of it. Especially for small stuff, you want to make sure that like you have the small stuff first. Like to be honest with you, I've never owned a drum set in my life. Never, never bought one. Never had one. When I live with my mom, don't have one right now. You know what I mean? But that don't mean that the other stuff can't be gotten like over time. Like I bought cymbals. Why? Because you may run into a situation where you go to a church, right? And they may have cymbals, but they may not be what you prefer, or they may not have the sound that you're looking for in the cymbal. That's why, and especially because sometimes there are churches that you go to them and they may not have no cymbals, and you may have to bring them. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Even saving for that, like, and it's easier now because they have payment plans, right? To where like you can literally go on a music website and pay like $50 a month for like 6 to 8 months. You know what I mean? But that's a good investment because again, especially as a church musician, you're going to come into a situation where like you're gonna need to have something that you're comfortable with. You know what I mean? Like I think most drummers are comfortable when they have a certain snare. If a certain snare is your preference, you may want to save up for that. You may want to save up to make that investment so that way you're not going to churches and having to use a drum that you don't like the way it sounds. You're kind of forcing yourself to go along with it because it's there. It's something for you to use. Do you know before you show up to the church? Um, Not necessarily. The only way I would know, honestly, mom, is if I've been to the church before. If I've never been there before, honestly, I'll say it like this too, mom. Whether I whether I know or not, I still bring my stuff because you never know. You know what I mean? Because sometimes people will tell you, "Oh yeah, we got this and that, and this and that," and then you get there and it's like, "This is not," you know. And then most of the time, you know, nowadays a lot of churches are hiring musicians. Churches are hiring musicians, so a lot of times musicians would take, they'll bring their stuff when they gotta play. They'll bring their cymbals, they'll bring their snare, they'll bring their foot pedal, they'll bring their sticks, and once they're done playing, they leaving. And the church may have like their own cymbals or sticks or pedal, but it's not always a guarantee that whatever's there is gonna what makes a drummer comfortable. If that makes sense. And again, that's why again investing is important. Invest. Sometimes the investment will come as like an opportunity for you to be like, you know what? I need sticks. I need I can't remember what it's called. I need a brick of sticks of drumsticks. I can't spend money on that right now. That's gonna have to wait. Or, again, if you need cymbals, whether it's one cymbal or whether it's a pack, sometimes the investment is the word no. Sometimes the investment is like, you know what, let me keep this 180 for these sneakers that I want to buy so much when I know I need some cymbals, I know I need a snare drum, I know I need a drum head, you know, I know I need a MacBook. I was saying that too. My bad, I got sidetracked. Um, I began to take a liking in making tracks, but I know that I need, like, if I was gonna make them, I was gonna need a laptop. I was gonna need a MacBook. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like I knew that, like, okay, if I want this MacBook, I need to save my money. And just to take, even just taking it away um from even like being a musician at church. Like I remember when my first job, I was working at Foreman Mills, and I think I'm pretty good at saving money. I'm not somebody that, like, whenever I see something I gotta buy it. Like I'll look at it and be like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. But I don't really have like hot hands when it comes to you know wanting something that I see. But from that job and saving like maybe like a month and a half or a couple months worth of checks, because I wasn't getting that much. I was only working part time, but I was making enough money to where, like, okay, I bought a whole bunch of clothes, bro. Like I just bought a whole bunch of them at the same time, and still had some left over. Again, that's because like I invested, I put money aside. You know what I mean? Especially with me, going to church, and again, me buy my own clothes. I had money to buy the clothes that I wanted. Like I had money to buy the clothes that I knew I won't be able to get nobody to buy for me. You know what I mean? So once I was able to start working and getting a check, you know what I mean? I was able to, get what I wanted, buy what I wanted, the style I wanted. I could dress. I mean, I was already dressing myself, but I could literally wear the clothes that I thought looked good. Again, the investment sometimes is saying no to certain things. If you want to be, especially if you want to take being a musician seriously, and that's with any instrument. You know what I mean? Again, like I said, I couldn't afford a drum set, but I made sure, listen, I need to have a snare, I need sticks, I need cymbals. You know, you gotta start somewhere, because I think sometimes we think like, hey, there's no need for me to get X, Y, and Z because I don't have this. Like, nah, like I said, especially when you're a person that gets called to play certain places a lot and you're like frequently playing at other churches. Most of the time, unless you've been to that church or you're like the drummer or the musician for that church, you really don't really know what's there. And drummers, unless it's like something like really important, we not really trying to call around asking about what's at the church. That's just I rather for me, I rather just bring my own stuff because I'm gonna do that regardless. And if the stuff that's there is all good, you know, I'll probably still bring my snare though because I like the way my snare sounds personally. But if the cymbals are good quality, then I might just be like, you know what, I'm not gonna break out my cymbals because I don't really. It doesn't require me to try to break down some stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, mom, I've learned to do that. I've learned to do that because I've had some experiences where like I just kind of, you know, I've been the drummer with the guest church, and I've just been like, well, I'm just gonna bring my sticks. Nah, nope, because I know how I want to sound. So I make sure that I do what I can to make myself comfortable. Even if the drum set itself isn't necessarily like something that I prefer, I still want to make sure that I have everything else around me that can make me comfortable. You know what I mean? So even if that means just, you know, making something lower, making a tom lower, making a simple stand lower, like whatever I gotta do. You know what I mean? Investing is important. Because when I think of investments, like I don't think of investments as like, okay, I'm gonna do something like for the now. Like a lot of times investments is more about what you see yourself doing. Thank you, mom. Like when I think of investments, I'm thinking like I'm doing this now because I know what I'm going to be doing later on. Like me, even like I said, I use this as an example all the time. Sorry, y'all, I talk kind of fast. But even like again with this, like me trying to get this set up, like I'm trying to start that now on having a setup because I know what I want to do in the future. So, and a part of investing is going through trial and error, knowing what's going to work, knowing what's not going to work, knowing, you know, whether to buy, you know, what kind of microphone or what kind of headphones or what kind of like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that matters. Like stuff like that matters. You know what I mean? The Bible says to despise not small beginnings. So even again, even as a musician, don't ever think, you know, it's this is just my little old thing. I only got like I said, I don't have drums. Like I don't have a drum set. You know what I mean? I used to go to a church every day after work and just go and just play to whatever song. And this is again, this is before the whole like iRig era. Like these days, everybody got an iRig, especially during the pandemic. Like you will go on music websites and the iRigs, the most basic ones, are like all sold out. Like everybody buys them up. Like like I said, I was doing this before the iRig era. I would literally go to the church, you know, plug my headphones into my phone, turn a song on, whether it's a stem or the actual full recorded song, and I will play to that song. And that's my practice. Like again, even that in itself is an investment because you're literally sowing into where you want to go. Like that's literally what it is. When you invest, it's like it's a way of sowing where you want to go. You know what I mean? Nobody trains for nothing. Like you train because either you play in a sport or because you want to be healthy. You're making that investment. You know what I mean? So I think that in itself is something that like I think you have to be mindful of because again, we think investment is always money or like investing is always like I gotta I gotta put $1 in somebody's hand or I gotta pay the nah. Sometimes the investment is just you using wisdom, not putting out money, but putting out wisdom. Okay, I don't need that right now. I'm trying to get I'm trying to get these sticks. I'm trying to get these drums. I'm trying to get this keyboard. Like, you know what I mean? And also don't ever feel like you have to like it has to be like the top thing because a lot of times it's okay that you're not gonna get the most dope drum set or the most popular snare, the most popular laptop. Like my MacBook I have here is not the most recent one. It's probably like maybe 2002 or something. Like, but you got to start somewhere though. Most of the people that we see, like streamers and like banging keyboardists and like drummers, especially keyboardists, because I see like I follow quite a few like keyboards and organists or whatever, and I always often see like they always post about like their first keyboard or the first keyboard they really had to practice with and they used when they had to like drag it to church with them and carry it around or whatever. Like a lot of times those what they had at first isn't always the best thing. So don't don't turn your nose up at investment, ideas, all because it ain't really what everybody else doing. Even with with the streamers, because I watch a lot of streamers. Like if you look, if you happen to see something on your algorithm of what they look like or what they had before, they started going crazy with support and stuff like that, and people start really know who they are. Those those people were not. They did not have what they have now. But again, they put forth an investment. You gotta start somewhere. You gotta start somewhere. And sometimes the investment is research. I think sometimes we don't think about it like that either. Like sometimes the investment is research. Okay, so you want to stream, you want to live stream, you want to you want to be a streamer, you want to be a producer, you want to be a musician, you want to be a beat maker. Cool. But sometimes the investment, starts out with research. Okay, you like you like Kai Cenat, you like Duke Dennis, you want to be, you're a musician, you want to be an MD, you want to play, or you want to be as fluid in your playing as Glenn Gibson or Josh Easley or Shawan, whatever. Like it's also research, not knowing the background info about what you're trying to do, about what you're trying to get into. You know what I mean? Because honestly, everybody don't have the gift of doing stuff by ear. Everybody don't have the gift of just doing something because they just see it and they want to emulate it. Now, some people, sometimes you gotta do, even if you do have stuff by ear, sometimes you just gotta do your research. Sometimes you have to just literally read. Sometimes you have to literally sit down, Google. Listen, Google is your friend. If anything, Google is your friend. You can literally look up anything on Google. Yes, yes. And sometimes I think sometimes we overthink the investment because we think that we think kind of the most about it. Again, sometimes it's just picking up a book and reading. Sometimes it's just picking up your phone and doing a Google search. You know what I mean? How do you do this? How what tools do I need to stream? What tools do I need in order to learn how to do X, Y, and Z? You know what I mean? Again, and I want to say that's a small investment because you know most things that you learn, that you invest in, sometimes they seem pointless. Like I remember on the Cosby Show, I think either Rudy, either Rudy or Denise, they were talking about they wanted to get into playing the drums. They were in the band or something at school, and Rudy, I think it was Rudy. She was telling her dad how she had seen this drummer or she seen the band or something like that, and how they was going crazy, whatever. And pretty much Cliff was kind of you know, you want to do all the, but you got to learn how to do you got to learn the basics. You know what I mean? That's you want to start out with the you want to learn the tricks and all that, but you got to take the time to put in the work, aka the investment of learning the things that you may find boring or learning the things that you may find juvenile. You know what I mean? Because even with that, with being a musician, a lot of it is muscle memory and developing muscle memory. All it really is you really doing the same thing over, looking up stuff and kind of doing things over and over and over until you can do it without really thinking about it, or doing it without, questioning yourself. You know what I mean? And like I said, and I'm not gonna hold you. I'm not gonna hold you. That could be very annoying. I'm not gonna sit there and make it seem like it's gonna be sweet. Nah, it's gonna be annoying because it's gonna feel like when you're doing it in the moment, it's gonna feel like nothing's happening. It's gonna feel like, okay, I've been doing these little exercises for a week, and it still feels like I'm in, it just feels like I'm still trying so hard to get it right. But again, a lot of times, of course, even this, a part of the investment is also um not trying to heavily focus on like what you don't know. Like sometimes the investment is sometimes just being present in what's in front of you. Like I said, even when we do talk about investing money, you got to think, okay, I said this before, because I feel like you got to repeat stuff these days. Even with money, trying to like you're trying to buy things or you're trying to get what you need, you may not always have the money to get a whole drum set. Because honestly, drum sets are expensive, especially the quality ones. And I think that without trying to be like all high maintenance, drum sets still can be pretty expensive. Because this one thing I had to learn again with being like when I became serious about drumming, and I was like what, like when I was like 11 or 12, is that when you buy drums, hardware don't come with it. Cymbals don't come with it. I don't think a pedal comes with the drum set. Like you're literally buying when you buy a drum set, you're just buying the toms and the kick drum. That's it. Everything else is sold separately. You gotta buy you unless again, some stuff does come in a pack, but if you go and buy hardware, that's separate from the drums. Some drums do get sold with the like with the snare, but other than that, like the hardware and all that stuff, like that's not something that doesn't come with the drum set. So again, sometimes and it's not, and I don't want to like not saying you have to settle because I don't want to make settle as if like you gotta like downplay or downgrade whatever. But I will say again, I said this before, you have to work with what you have. Don't go broke trying to keep up with what you see on your algorithm or what you see somebody else doing. I'm telling you. Like I said, I don't have a drum set, but I knew that, when I go to churches to play, I'm gonna need my own snare. I'm gonna need cymbals. I'm gonna need sticks. You know what I mean? I'm gonna need headphones. We're and back then it wasn't like that, but more like now more than ever, we're in the era of like click tracks. So you need a snare, maybe cymbals. You need a pedal sometimes, and you'll need headphones, in ears. And sometimes investing in those things means the opposite of spending money, saving money. You know what I mean? Sometimes it means, hey, I got this gig coming up, I got this major gig coming up, and you know, I need cymbals or I need a cymbal. Again, you know what makes you comfortable. So that's one of them things where you got to be able to pick whatever you need and be able to make a plan for that. Hi. So it's one of the things where like you got to be able to like make a exactly, yes. Set goals. Make a list of the things that you want. Start from the least expensive to the most, like a checklist. Like okay, like okay, you know, drumsticks for a drummer. I'll speak for drummers because I'm a drummer. For a drummer, buying sticks may be the most realistic thing that you can afford. They get up there in pricing now. They almost cost like $15 a set, a set of sticks. But that may be the um, the most important thing that you need as a drummer is drumsticks, right? Go down the list again. It's going to get expensive pretty quick, but rock with it. You may need a, you know, you may need a hi hat clutch. You know what I mean? You may need a hi hat clutch. Next, you may need, I'll say headphones. Headphones. Next you may need a snare, and then probably lastly, well not lastly, but next will probably be cymbals, and then lastly will probably be the actual drums themselves, and then probably after that probably hardware. That's really probably about it. You know what I mean? And like I said, I think a lot of times like we're we get it's like we throw shade on musicians for not having real jobs. And I think that, well, not real jobs, I don't want to say that, but for not having jobs like actual like jobs where you have benefits and all that, and we like to Jones on them kind of musicians. But I think that, we should also be like, well, if you're not willing to really go and find like a really, a consistent, like a job with a consistent like flow of pay, then at least encourage them to be like, really, really intentional about saving what they do get from church. You know what I mean? Because putting musicians down for only making money from playing in church is not gonna it's not gonna make them consider it's not gonna make them consider, you know, finding another avenue of work to get more money. At least encourage them, hey, if you're gonna be, just playing at church, you know, please make sure you save your money. Save your money. Make sure that you got enough to last you, you know, at least a couple weeks or until the next week when you get paid again. And that's especially for musicians who um you musicians who don't really have no real bills. You know what I mean? You paying for a phone. Like that's it. Like that's perfect for you to literally save as much as you can, because once you get that church check, if you're just making money at church, you ain't got to worry about having to split it between electric bill, a phone bill, a gas bill. Like you ain't got to worry about that. It's almost like when they say about like people like young adults who live with their parents. The same thing with that. That's not really where I'm going with it. That's not really my main topic, but it's kind of the same thing where it's like people tell you why you living with your parents as a young adult. Save as much as you can. Really, really save your money. Learn how to put money aside, so that way when you do need it, you ain't pulling from one place, or you ain't feeling like, oh my gosh, you know I can't really spend no money unless I get my next church check. Like you want to make sure that you're on point with that. Like I said, when I had my first job, I saved about maybe a month or two or three in those part time checks to where I literally could. I literally bought a bunch of H&M clothes like all at once, and still have money left over. You know what I mean? If you're gonna just make money from playing in church, at least know how to make money, or at least know how to save. So especially so you can have your own. Especially if you have your own, especially so you can have your own. Cause listen, you know, I did not want to be one of those musicians that's always asking to borrow somebody's cymbals. That's just me. I never wanted to be that musician. Yo, can I borrow some sticks? Hey, can I borrow your cymbals? Like, nah. That I never wanted to be that person. I wanted to be able to like get it myself. Hello, hi, hi, hi. So yeah, don't put yourself in a hole. Yes. Hi, Brayden. I'm working. That's working. Yeah, but yeah, like I forgot my train of thought, y'all. But yeah, and especially because depending on where, depending on the area that you're in, you're not, especially as a drummer, you're not getting paid that much. You know what I mean? Like you're not getting paid that much as a drummer. So, and that's only unless you're at a church where like, you know, the church is some mega church and it's one of them churches where, the church got an office staff and the church just got, the church is open 24, not 24/7, but the church is open. They got office hours. Like the average church is not going to, as a drummer, they're not going to be paying you that much. So that's why, like, save. If you trying to really take music seriously or take whatever you're trying to do seriously, like, take the time to invest with research, invest with saving, invest with knowing exactly what you're trying to do or knowing, you know, what you're doing with whatever you're trying to go with. You feel me? That's important. Investments, investments. Because even I remember when learning like YouTube and stuff and watching musicians on YouTube. Like sometimes, like even that's an investment. Like they have teaching videos on YouTube too, and demonstrations with drummers and different musicians. They telling you, they'll tell you what exercises they use, or they'll tell you, you know, how they got their speed to where it is, or they'll teach you even stuff like placement, and they'll teach you, even like the thought process behind things that they do. Like watching and learning is an investment. That's how I learned. I've never had a lesson. I've never had somebody teach me a chop or teach me how to, how to necessarily play the way I do. I literally learned by watching. Like I said, the church I grew up in, it wasn't necessarily some church where like it's everybody, everybody that came to the church was like some star musician, but they could play though. And whoever came through, as a drummer at the church, that's who I learned from. My bro, Paul, rest easy, Paul Purnell, my god sister Brittany Sessoms, and she's like a monster. She plays mad instruments. I think like 7 or 8, or maybe more than that. Um, my uncle, Chris Brock, and then Miss Tina, she played. So I literally learned how to play from watching. And even like when I'm little, like I'm literally like I'm tearing up my pencils because, you know, all I wanted to do was play. You know what I mean? So sometimes even investing means, watching. watching how musicians do certain things, knowing what their knowing what their mindset is when they do certain things, when they play a certain way, or if you have a artist or a musician, they may play for different artists across genres or even the same genre, and you may have to ask them, and that's another one, communication, talking. This is something I'm trying to get myself used to. You know what I mean? Asking questions, getting connected, asking those who's been where you're trying to go, asking them, hey, you know, you've been doing this for a minute. How do you get to that point? What made you play a song like that? What made you approach it like that? You know what I mean? I think sometimes with some of us, you know, especially because we're in our own world a lot of times, especially as creatives, investing in that way is also getting out of your own way, asking questions. When you're trying to grow at something, you ain't gonna really have time to, you know, be like, I'm just gonna stand in my corner, let somebody say something to me. Like, nah, sometimes you gotta go and look for the information. You gotta really like pick somebody's brain. If you're blessed to, you know, be in proximity of somebody who may be like experiencing something in music, in recording music, and playing certain stuff, like, hey, if you're serious, take the time to like pick their brain. Because trust me when I tell you, if I was old enough to know, or if I was around, a certain caliber of musicians, I would definitely, I would ask questions. In the times where I didn't and I was surrounded, that's one thing where I kind of like regret. How people get prideful with that, but that's one regret that I would say I have had. You know what I mean? Sometimes I wish that I didn't let my nervousness make me prideful. You know what I mean? Like you get so nervous about something and you get so insecure and you so like timid about stuff that you allow yourself to get intimidated out of asking the questions that you need to ask. Or you allow yourself to get so nervous that all of a sudden, you know, you scare your way out of picking the brain of that person that you need to be connected to, probably. The person you can learn from. You know what I mean? So yeah. Brandon, no, 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 no. Keep okay. Well, hopefully I can still hear me. Um. So yeah, pretty much the investment can come in so many ways. It don't have to be money. It don't have to be, it don't have to be necessarily, just monetary or like it doesn't always have to be something that's in your hand. Again, sometimes it's just asking questions, taking the surroundings that you're in, and being willing to be a sponge, doing the research, saving what you do have, working with what you do have. Because at the end of the day, your journey is your journey. And, you know, a lot of times, how you get to where you're going is dependent upon the steps you take, the investments that you put forth, the time you put forth. You know, sometimes I think too, if I kind of knew some of the things that I would need, if I knew that back when I first started drumming, I probably would have had, I probably would have dove headfirst into learning certain things. You know, I used to be so, I used to be so nervous about playing with tracks that I like kind of avoided it. Like I would kind of hope that like if I had to play at a gig or something, I would hope that we didn't rehearse or have to use tracks. You in your room? Okay, I guess I just set it right out, I guess. Um. So yeah, that's kind of where I used to be at with it. But sometimes, like after a while, certain things can't be a crutch. Come here. Get over here now. Come play out here. Come play in the playroom. So yeah, I'm about to be done in a minute. But yeah, like that's something I thought about. I feel like I should talk about. Like investments can come in so many ways. You know, sometimes, and again, like I said, even nowadays, like you don't even gotta necessarily sign up for lessons. Like you can literally go on YouTube, and it's like playlists of like different series of lessons for beginners, intermediates, experts. Like you can literally look stuff up on YouTube, and it's there. And I think the whole investment through research is a big one because again, these days we're in a day where like you can literally research whatever you need to know. Hi, like that's kind of like the world we're in now. Like whatever you want to know, it's a Google search away. It's a YouTube search away. So these days, it's really not no excuses. If you don't have drumsticks, it's because you ain't saving up to get it. If you don't have a laptop or you're not, if you're not putting forth the actual effort to have certain things, it's because you know you may not be necessarily putting forth the effort to get it. So I think that that's something that every creative should think about, every person should think about, because wisdom also says don't go broke trying to do certain things. Like I said, that's why I said put what you need on a list, because you, again, speaking as a drummer, you may not be at the point financially to where you can just go off and just look for a drum set to buy. That may not be where you are financially. Make a list. You may be, a sticks, and then you can, and then, like I said, and then you just save whatever money you get, whether it's from church, whether it's from, you know, whether it's from whatever you're doing. You just make sure that you're wise. Make sure you can actually, again, put forth enough effort to where like you're saving and it don't feel like you're just, oh my gosh, I just had this yesterday. I don't have it no more just that fast. You know, hopefully, it's one of the things where like you kind of can grow from, because again, investing in yourself, it's also an indication of how seriously you take yourself, how seriously you take your gift. Because I'm not trying to be funny, but ain't no way you take yourself seriously as a musician, or I guess as a musician, and then you don't even, you're not even in like trying to invest in certain things. Like you can't be a drummer and not own a pair of sticks, at least. Like some stuff is like, okay, come on. Because even at the church I play at, there's a stash of sticks at the church, but I got my own. And for me, I feel like that stash of sticks is for people who are like, you're playing because like you're a guest, or in case somebody that's coming in may not have sticks. If I'm the drummer, I'm bringing my sticks. That's just me. I think that as a musician, you should always have your own sticks. You know what I mean? That's just me. But Again, even with this, with the streaming thing, like I'm invested in it. I'm definitely gonna do my research. When it comes to like, okay, the microphone thing, the mixer thing, like I'm invested in that because I know that where I'm trying to go with this, it requires you to do more, to learn more, to invest more, to research more. You know what I mean? These are certain things. Again, it's an indication of how seriously you take it, and it's an indication of where do you see yourself going with it. Sometimes people can tell if you like something by the effort you put towards it. You can be good at something, but if you don't really care for it and you just kind of doing it because whatever. It's like somebody that's real tall, right? The narrative may be that tall people must play a sport. They must do a sport. Nah, you can be a tall person and maybe just be playing basketball because you're tall, and people see the height and be like, oh, I need him on my team. But they may not be into it again based off of like the investment they put in it. They probably don't even own a basketball. They don't go to the park and hoop. You know what I mean? So yes, sir. I think that again, investment. It's often like everything else. It's how you see it. How are you going to invest? How are you going to sow into where you're trying to go? And that's honest. That's real. Because like I said, I use this all the time as an example. Like I'm trying to go somewhere with this, and it's going to require me to know more. It's going to require me to do more. It's going to require me to have certain things so that way I'm giving quality and not just do something and it look like I'm just throwing it together like here, dang, okay, here, go. Like nah, like you want to, you know. And I'm the kind of person where like if I want to do something, I want to do it right. So when I finally buy a drum set, it ain't gonna be no rinky dink. I don't like rinky dink. I don't want to do nothing and have nothing that look like it's falling apart, or have anything or do anything and it just look like it's just one thing go wrong and the whole thing just you know what I mean. Like you want to make sure that you know when you're doing something that you're giving it your all. Like if I don't really care to be a professional athlete, I'm not gonna waste my time trying to do it on something like, well, I'm just gonna do it because I mean ain't nothing else. Like nah. Mm-mm. You gotta think about it like that too. You know, if you're gonna do it, do it. That's literally my mindset for everything now. I've invested that thought. Like, listen, especially if I gotta play somewhere that may be unfamiliar, but I'm doing it. I may be nervous, but once it's showtime, I'm like, look, we here now. We here now. Ain't no point in trying to you know tense up and scare myself out of it, or scare myself where I sabotage my own self from future opportunities. Hey, we here now. I've invested time to practice. I've invested time to prepare. I've listened to the music. I've rehearsed with the band. I've listened to the music some more. I've literally, air drummed, my way into knowing the parts. Listen, I'm not gonna give rinky dink. No rinky dink. You know what I mean? So that's why you invest. So that again, when it's time for you to show what you got, it don't just sound like it sounds like you invested in it. It looks like you invested in it. It's almost like again when people sell music, people do music. You can almost kind of tell by how it sounds. Okay, they took their time. Okay, they made sure that whatever's being sung, that the parts, like if it's in unison, okay, I can tell it sounds like, they really did the unison thing. You know what I mean? Or I can tell they really, I can tell they invested the money, the time, and energy to make sure that X, Y, and Z sounded good, or X, Y, and Z flowed the way it's supposed to flow. Investing for the future. Investing for the future. Because again, that honestly, the investment part determines how far you go. Especially because, like, with me, like, I'm a Christian. So for me, it's like I was like praying or whatever, and I'd be trying to ask God, like, okay, Lord, what do I need to learn right now? I want to pursue X, Y, and Z. Like, what do I need to learn? Because I don't want to say I want something, but never be prepared for it. Okay, you want to play drums here, there, and everywhere, but you're not doing anything to prepare yourself for that. You ain't buying the material, or when you get an opportunity to do something, you don't put forth the effort to be on top of your game. You when you have people around you that you can pull from, you don't ask no questions. You just kind of sit around and just wait for everything to come to you. Everything's not gonna come to you. Everything's not gonna be in your face to like, hey, are you okay? Like, nah. Some things you gotta be like, yo, what's up? Like, can I ask you something? I want to know this. I want to know X, Y, and Z. Like, that's kind of like what it is, you know? And I think that's just what it is. The investment, it comes in all shapes and sizes. I look at investments totally different now, you know. So I hope this helps somebody. If you're gonna do it, do it. And if you're gonna do it, make sure you're giving your best. Make sure you're doing the work. You're putting in the work. You're doing the research. You asking the right questions. You're pulling from the right people. Make sure you're, you know, getting the information that you need, so that way when it's when it's showtime, whatever showtime is for you, you showing up. And can't nobody say, oh, he wasn't prepared. He said he wanted it, but I can't tell. I can't tell. He said he wanted to do X, Y, and Z. He said he was interested, but I mean, I can't tell because when it was showtime, he kind of, he was shaky. He said he wanted to play for X, Y, and Z. He said he wanted to play, over here and over there. But when he had a gig and he had to learn, 6 or 7 songs, it kind of, I couldn't tell that he really worked on it. Like, I couldn't tell that he really, you know, I could tell that he really wasn't sure about it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be in that place where you're asking for something that you can't handle because you haven't invested the time and effort. You haven't invested the the time to work on that skill, or the time to know what you need, or the time to see, okay, what tools do I need to make this work? It's not kind of fussing a little bit, but that's just kind of, that's just kind of, what it is. You feel me? Like, you want to make sure that your investment speaks for you, and that's all. That's a freestyle. You want to make sure that your investment, that your effort speaks for you, because you may not, what you do may not be perfect, but it may be enough for somebody to see you and be like, you know what, they can't do that the way I know I do now, but I like the effort that they put into it. I can tell they practice. I can tell they worked on it. I can tell that when I sent them music, or when I sent them a link to hear or see something, I can tell that they saw it and they worked on it. You know what I mean? Like that's, you know, to me that's capitalizing on the investment, especially when somebody's investing into you. The way to invest back is to put forth the time and effort, put forth what you need. Again, whether it requires money or not, you want to make sure that your investment speaks for you. You know what I mean? Because it's more than just knowing what you need, but it's like, okay, you know you need this, so now you need a plan to get yourself to that point where, okay, I went from knowing what I need to now like, okay, I have it now. On to the next thing. Okay, I mastered this. Okay, now what else? Because I know there's more. Okay, I got this. I found out how to do this. This is like second nature to me now. Okay, so let me see what else I can do to, you know, to just evolve beyond what I've already known. You know what I mean? So yes, investing is a huge part of everything, whether it's money, whether it's the tangible things, you know, whether it's learning, research, again, whether it's coming out of your comfort zone, whether being, whether you being the conversation starter, or whether it even comes down to you, being, you know, the person who has to be the sponge and you have to take everything in so that you learn in the process, like, okay, they have something, and if I want to be what that is, or I want to go where they're going, I gotta put forth the effort, put forth the investment into knowing at least their journey, their thought process, their why, their how. You know what I mean? So I hope that makes sense. That's my final word for that subject. That came to my mind just now. Let your investment speak for you. Let it be said that, hey, you know, I can tell that they care about what they're doing. I can tell that they have, you know, they have a care, they have a sensitivity for this craft, or for what this job entails, or for what this career, you know, requires, or what this job or gig requires. I can tell that they care. I can tell that they put forth the effort into getting, the work done, or getting whatever they need to have done, so that way they're prepared, or they're able to give their best, you know, and make it easy, because especially in a band setting as a musician, it makes it easy for everybody. So, again, whether you're a musician or not, make sure you're putting forth the investment. If you say you want something, put forth the effort, discipline yourself, make checklists for what you know you need, and trust me. And again, it may not happen when you feel like it should, but after a while, the investments build up. The investments add up, you know, and you'll find yourself like, oh wow, I really did this. I really got this. I really was able to buy this. I was really able to step into this lane, or step into this, this I was able to step into this career, or step into this area of my life, or area of my career where, like, I actually have what I've always wanted and wanted to prepare for. And you can impart that into the next generation, into the next person that comes after you. So that's what I'll say about that. In closing, I want to say I was so supported at the gala. My friends and homies took pictures of me while I was playing, sent them to me, and it meant a lot to me. If it taught me one thing, that support taught me that if I can encourage you anything else, and I'm closing with this. I sound like a preacher, but I'm really closing with this. That taught me that somebody somewhere, no matter what you see around you, there is somebody that is rooting for you. I want you to know that. Like there is somebody somewhere rooting for you. And they may not be the person that's always under your post. They may not repost everything that you put that's profound or dope. They may not always, make a comment or like and comment and subscribe, or they may not always share all your content, or they may not always pat you on your back and all that stuff like that. But somebody somewhere is rooting for you. They're happy for you. They're supporting you. They like what you do. They like what you have to offer. They like what you do as you, not you trying to be like somebody else, but they somebody somewhere, they like, you know, they support you. Because honestly, people were telling me, even outside of them saying I sound good, that's cool. But they're taking the pictures and people showing me they have pictures of me up there playing and some still shots. Like that meant a lot to me because again, it shows that like again, people are rooting for you. People care. Again, it may seem like, oh my gosh, nobody cares. Nobody's telling me how dope I am. Nobody's telling me, oh my gosh, you're good at what you do. They may not tell you that every day or tell you that every time you do something good, but let me encourage you. Somebody's rooting for you. Somebody's out there, whether near or far, there's somebody that wants you to win. There's somebody who is eagerly waiting for you to win. They're waiting for you to win. They can't wait for you to win. They can't wait to be able to tell you how proud they are of you. They can't wait to be able to tell you how, how dope, you know, how dope you're doing, how what you're doing is inspiring them. There's some people that can't wait to be able to do that. And again, don't go by how many compliments you get. Don't go by how many people tell you you're dope, or don't go by whether people aren't telling you that stuff. Trust me, somebody's rooting for you, especially when you're doing the right thing. Especially when you walk upright, when your name is clean, especially when your heart's in the right place, when you put forth the investment in what you're doing or towards what you're doing, towards where you're trying to go. Trust me when I tell you, somebody's rooting for you. I had to learn that. I heard that as clear as day on my way home last night from the gala. Somebody's rooting for you. Somebody's proud of you. Somebody sees what you do and they're smiling at their phone because they're like, yo, I've been watching him for a minute and I love his progression. I love his evolution or her evolution. I love the way they've gone from being this person who can barely do XYZ to now they're mastering it and they're able to show the next generation, or you know you see the fruits of the time they put in. There's people that you don't even know that's probably saying that about you. There's people that you've never met in real life, and I just see you on social media. That's like, yo, he's dope. I remember when he used to be scared to post. He used to be scared to talk in front of people. He used to be scared to start a conversation, or he used to be scared to talk to people or be around a lot of people at one time. Now, you know, he's doing the opposite. He's playing and doing certain things. He's got relationships with these people. He's connected with these people. He posts content regularly. You know what I mean? He talks about himself, or he describes himself or his playing without making himself seem you know the least. That sounds like me actually, but that's kind of like that's what it is. You know what I mean? There's somebody that's rooting for you, no matter how quiet it is around you, No matter how many people that you thought would applaud that aren't applauding, there's somebody. There's somebody. There's somebody. Don't quit. Don't get discouraged again because you don't hear people chanting your name, or just because you don't seem like the favorite, or you're not being called on like so and so is. That's cool. But trust me, somebody out there is proud of you. Somebody somewhere thinks that you're dope, and they think the world of you, and they love what you do, and they see your potential. Again, somebody somewhere is proud of you because again, they saw when you were barely doing this, but now they see you doing this fluently without it looking like you kind of scared to do it, or you're just fearless now. So that's what I wanted to do, is encourage somebody that somebody is proud of you, somebody's rooting for you. Just some motivation. So I hope this helps somebody. I probably repeated myself mad times, but again, we're living in a world where you gotta say stuff. You gotta say stuff three, four, and five times for it to really like stick it. Like first to like really stick. So I hope whatever I said really stuck, and you know, I hope my words meant something. I want to start like clipping stuff or like making notes of like the key stuff that I say, because I want to start making clips and stuff like on like TikTok and stuff like that. So I hope that something was gotten out of this. So definitely, again, that's if I could say anything else as my last thing. Somebody's proud of you. Somebody's rooting for you. Somebody who's been, somebody who's noticing your progress. They're proud of you because they see how far you've come. So thanks for tuning in. I'll be back next week for Musician Sabbath Mondays. Thanks for all who bear with me with the technical difficulties. Like I said, I'm about to go. I'm gonna research this, invest my time in researching to see how I can have a better feed for this stream. Because like I said, I don't like no Ricky Dink. I don't do Ricky Dink at all. I like high quality. So we going. I'm gonna practice what I preach and go ahead and research this good old thing to make sure that I'm doing my stuff right. And you know, I'll catch y'all next week. It may be just like this again. So love you guys. Thank you and be